Welcome to another edition of a Tech Talk. Today's edition is about what to do when you don't have a clue. A toolkit for surviving and conquering the GED HighSet math test. Success rarely comes easily. Any of us know this, and it takes commitment and a lot of hard work. Even the best laid plans may fall by the wayside when hit with the unexpected. The more equipped you are with strategies for dealing with those times, the faster and easier it will be to dig yourself out. I thought of this and I saw this in terms of the tests. The test has got a lot of math anxiety involved with it. So the more equipped you are with strategies, the more practice you've done, then the better off you're going to be, and it's going to lead to success. I wanted to tell a little story about a little incident I had with tests. I was trying to be a teacher in California, and I had gotten my master's degree, and the only thing left to do was to pass these content tests. I think they were some sort of No Child Left Behind. I was intending on being an elementary teacher, so I had to take 6 tests, I think it was, in social studies, science, whatever an elementary teacher would be teaching, even phys ed. And I had not experienced the whole standardized testing before, so the first time I went to go take them, I bombed terribly. Failed, failed, failed. They were very expensive tests, and I had studied for years. I'd gotten practice tests and things and studied, so I thought I knew what I was doing. And I'm thinking, this is just elementary. What's wrong? It took a lot of guts, and I don't know what got me the courage to get up and take it again. But the second time I took it, I was more relaxed. I decided, oh, it's going to happen. If it's going to be, it's going to be. And I put this song in my head to keep me calm. If you're wondering what this Guardians of the Galaxy thing is, every time I got stressed, I'd play this. Okay, so I hope you recognize that song. It was from other things besides the Guardians of the Galaxy. But I put that little tune in my head, leaving it up to the spirits in the sky, because I figured whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And the second time I took it, I passed all 5 subjects in the same sitting, and it was kind of weird. I thought that, I just changed my attitude. Nothing else really changed. One day when I was teaching, it dawned on me that failing that, actually, I wouldn't be in the same place I am today if I hadn't failed that test. But you don't know that when you're like way back then. You're feeling like your life is falling apart. So I thought it was real interesting, and I can't explain it to this day why one time when I studied it and didn't work, in a time when I relaxed it did. So I'd like to talk more about math anxiety, but that's probably a whole different other tech talk. This tech talk is going to talk about test strategies for math, particularly dealing with word problems, geometry, setup questions, how to recognize a setup question, what to do when you have questions about data, charts, and tables, anything visual like that. And then I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and try to go through one of the practice tests for the GED. I have 2 set aside, and demonstrate how this would work and how you would use all these strategies. So the first thing up are the test strategies. There was too many to list here, but I tried to put something in here. This is called a 2-pass strategy, and it's good for any test, not just for math. It's good for any subject. Sometimes in an exam, you'll notice that some problems are easier than others. Some may be worth the same amount of points as the others. Sometimes it would be more difficult and involve several calculations if it's a math problem, like it'll take more than 2 steps. Sometimes a test item contains a substantial amount of text you have to read in order to understand what the heck the question is. I've seen some students, we've done some practice tests together, and it can be as much as 2 pages worth of text to get to the actual question, but you have to read through it. So in times like this, the 2-pass strategy works really well. It worked for me. It saves, especially if you have timing issues, like you run out of time, and that timer starts clicking and you get anxiety. This is really good for those times. So you're probably asking, what is the 2-pass strategy? Okay, so what it deals with is the first time you go through, or pass 1. You start with the very first question and you work your way forward, answering any questions that might be easy for you, quick, easy to estimate, and jumping over anything that takes longer than 3 minutes. That's one of my problems, letting things go. I get like, I know how to do this, I'm going to do this, and I waste a lot of time that way because I'm not watching the time. In class, I try to show them when I'm modeling anything that's going to take a long time to do, you got to just let it go. So you're going to go through that first pass, just doing the ones that seem simpler to you and easy. This requires that you know how to navigate the tests, though. So in particular, the GED test, they do have a skills tutor, or a tutor, computer skills tutorial kind of thing, where you can go through and it'll show you how to navigate from one question to the next and go backwards. So it does require some sense of how to navigate. So we've gone through the first time and watched our time. The second time we're going to go through, we're going to do more difficult things that take a little more time. But we still have to watch our time. We don't want to waste too much time on one problem. We want to skip it. So we're going to work our way back. And so what happens is you get an idea and you're alerted to your time. You finish the test because you've gone through it. And the next slide, actually part of the end of this would be, these are different other strategies. Do you see lucky letter there? So you went through 2 passes and time's running out. You have 5 minutes left. What do? You pick a lucky letter before you go into the testing site, and you're going to fill in all the blank ones with this lucky letter. You might be wondering why. Well, it's an odds thing. When you think about going and putting something random in there, the odds are, if there's 4 multiple choice that you're choosing from, there's a 1 out of 4 choice, let's say if you picked C, that's going to be right. You have like 12 empty, that's going to increase your odds. Maybe you're going to get 3 more questions. Every 4 is going to be 1. So you'll get 3 more questions, and maybe that can mean the difference of you passing the GED or not. Sometimes we get 1 point away, so this is nice. If you have to fill in, you might as well keep it the same letter because the odds are better. So other strategies that work, and this works with all kinds of other subjects, is process of elimination. I've noticed a lot of times that it's looking, when you don't have a clue what to do, if you look at the answers, you can eliminate the ones that are definitely wrong, and sometimes that's enough to get you to the right answer. It sounds a little backwards to me, but it seems to be working. So you're looking and you just kind of cross out the ones that can't be right. And sometimes you can cross out enough to get the right answer. Substitution. If you don't have a clue, you have answers there, especially if they're like asking you what x equals. If you have the answers there, you plug them back into the formula and you see if that works. So if we had an x plus 1 equals 5, for example, and they had these choices and one choice was 6, you plug that 6 back in where x was. Does 6 plus 1 equal 5? No. You see if it balances out. Sometimes it's tedious because you start with A and you have to go through the whole thing and find out the last one is always the choice. So my recommendation here is to start with one in the middle. In particular, the GED test, they list their answers according to the least to the greatest. So if you picked C, that's in between. And if it was too small, you know the answer would have to be D because the other 2 would be lower. So that's a little tip. So we're going to go to the next slide. Oh, word problems. I hear so much about word problems, how students hate word problems, and I really kind of hated them myself until I started learning about the key words. It's all about the key words. Doing enough practice tests, you'll start noticing they have these key words. In the old test, even they used to be in bold, like screaming at you. So words for addition, added to, combined, increased by, more than, sum, total. Words that are used for subtraction. There's 100 different words that might be used for adding or subtracting or multiplying, but there are certain key ones that they constantly use in a standardized test. Subtraction, decrease by, difference of, less than. We did a couple of these, in fact, in my class today. Multiplication, increased by a factor of, multiplied by, times. And this is not the whole list of things. You probably couldn't put the whole list on here. Division, definitely the word per. When you see the word per, it means divide. Out of, ratio of, equals, is. If something is, if a number is, it would mean that that's where the equal would go. And I didn't put it down here, but a number, if you don't know what it is usually the variable x, y, z, or whatever you want to call it. So knowing these words will help them understand. Sum, going back up to sum, because in order to have a sum, you have to have two things being added. So it's kind of the answer that you get when you sum two numbers. So as far as parentheses go, anything that's a sum, product, difference usually, and a quotient, you have to do first. So a lot of people make mistakes. They think they have the right answer, and the parentheses kind of screws them up. So sum, product, quotient, difference usually almost always mean that that has to be done first. And according to PEMDAS, it's in parentheses. Concentrate on the story, not the numbers, to visualize it. I just read this one yesterday, so if you took all the numbers out of the problem and you concentrated on the story, you would kind of know the question a little bit better. You'd be able to visualize it a little better. And then you can go back and put the numbers in. So you visualize it and you figure out what it's going to take to figure out this answer, like what different numbers I'm going to need. Am I going to need to add or subtract or multiply? Doing this will help you concentrate on that. In almost every word problem, there is something that equals something. So the word is can be used as a separator so they know what part goes first. Sometimes we're asked to do things like find consecutive numbers. Starting with the unknown and what you know about consecutive numbers works. So you're always starting with the x and comparing everything else when it comes to a word problem. So we're going to go down to the next slide. Geometry. There's a big difference between the HighSet formula page and the GED formula page. And getting a look at these pages before you go to take the test can kind of help you figure out what kind of questions they're going to be. So I'm going to click on the HighSet formula page and show you the difference here between the two. Oops, I'm sorry, my mouse was clicking where I didn't want it to go. So let's take a look at the HighSet formula page. Here is the formula sheet. In it we have, first thing was perimeter and circumference. We have area, triangle, so basic area, volume, sphere. But on the right here, we have a whole bunch of conversions, lengths and miles and how many feet they are, capacity and volume, weight. We have pounds and grams and what they are. This is really different than the GEDs. So it seems that this test is going to have a lot of conversions, a lot of measurements. It takes up half the page here compared to the GED one. So I'm going to go back and click on the link for the GED one so you can see the differences. So that kind of tells you, okay, there's going to be a lot of this or that in there. Oh, it keeps going to this slide. I'm sorry. I will go back. Technical difficulty here. So I can actually go to the GED formula page this way to GED practice test. Well, we'll go back to when we do the practice test. I don't want to start it yet. So sorry about the little interruption here. Let me get this presenting again. Okay, draw a picture. Drawing a picture, visualizing. Sometimes they ask some kind of strange questions. Drawing a picture will help you understand what they're asking better. I remember seeing in a HighSet practice test, they were talking about, they first started talking about this cow and how it was in a fence, and they had the cow tied to the corner of the fence there, and so they were asking its grazing area. So there's the only way I could kind of figure this out was to draw it. So eventually I was able to draw the fence and then draw this cow, you know, hooked to the corner of the fence. And I thought about his grazing area, and I figured the rope kind of kept him from being in the whole area, and it made like a circle type thing, a quarter of a circle actually. But I wouldn't have ever guessed that if we hadn't drawn that. Um, Things like silos. If you've never been near a farm, how do you know what a silo looks like? So drawing it will help you understand what shapes or volumes you're going to have to come up with. Um, Assuming, not assuming anything about what you see or what's going to be in the problem. If they don't say it, then it's not in part of the problem, or it's not part of the situation. Okay, so here are some other keys. So word clues in problems. What units are the answers given in? If you don't know what to do, maybe you want to look at the answers. If you don't know which formula to do, you're going to look at the answers. Is it length of sides? Squared? Squared would mean something that would, a formula for area. If something's cubic, that would mean 3 dimensions, and it would be volume. So if the answers are in cubes or squares, or they're just plain, then you can kind of figure out what the formula is when you don't know. The kind of shapes that are used in the problems that are being asked, are they talking about flat shapes? Well, then it has to be something with perimeter or area. Are we talking about something circular that's flat? Then the only 3 that we could deal with are circumference and area. And another thing that you'd want to notice is anything circular would have pi in its formula. So instead of memorizing that, that will narrow down your choices on which formula when you don't know what to do. Is the shape 3-dimensional? Does it look like a cube? Well, then we know we have a formula that's under volume. So another clue is the problem asking about a distance around an object? I just talked about a fencing or a rope or a cover. Is it just talking about the distance around it? Like if they're fencing something, then you're likely to take the formula for perimeter or circumference. Are they talking about somebody tiling something, or carpet, or fertilizer, or covering something? In that case, it's probably an area formula. The amount of figure holes. They're talking about how much oil something holds, like a drum. It narrows it down to know that you're talking about a volume. So these can help you as far as kind of eliminating some of the choices, or at least get you closer to the answer. Setup questions. I started noticing a lot of setup questions. Math is all about balance. If you can recognize that it's a setup problem and it's this balance thing, then you're dealing with like a ratio and a proportion kind of thing. So expressing the ratio as a fraction, we can express a ratio 3 ways, but as a fraction, if we make it equal, then it becomes a proportion that's easy to just cross multiply. So how do we recognize something is set up? And I can set it up as a ratio. If you're given 3 things and 2 of them have the same label and they're asking for something about one of those labels, then it's a ratio thing. If there are 2 things being compared, like pounds to cost to area, I see this one a lot. The guy in the building who's standing with and his shadow, and the building's next to him, and they're comparing the building's shadow to the height of the man or something. That is something that can be set up as a ratio. What they'll usually do is they'll give you half of it. They'll say, there's a building, and it casts a shadow of 12 feet. The building is X or 5 feet high. So they'll give you 1/2 of it, and then they'll bring something else into it. And the best way to do this is to show you how, when we do this modeling of we're demonstrating this different strategies. Lots of data, charts, and tables in the GED anymore. Um, Before you even get to the question, it's important to look at titles and any kind of labels. So a strategy before you even answer the question is to kind of look at the title. Even if you don't understand what the title is, look at the title so you know what's being expressed. Look at the XY axes. We got population here. How is it? How's it measured? It's not measured in just 1, 2, 3, 4. It's measured in intervals of 1,000,000. We have a little legend here that has color codes. So we can read the legend and understand that blue is all others, and China is yellow, and India is green. And the next thing you want to do is look for any patterns, especially if you have a line. Is it dropping? Is it increasing by a certain rate? Anything that's going to have like colored bars usually means you're going to be comparing things. In this case, we're comparing different countries, so that's why they're different colors. So just looking at that kind of thing will give you an understanding of the graph or the chart itself, and that way you're probably prepared to answer the questions. All right, we got to the demonstration. So what I'm going to do here, and hopefully I can click on OK. I have 2 practice tests here that are similar to the GED practice tests, not the HighSet, but the GED. One is the official GED. The other one is a union test prep. So I'd like to go through the test and see if I can throw out some of these strategies and how they work. So first we'll start with the official GED math practice test. I'm not sure, you've probably seen this 100 times already, but just in case, I thought we'd look at maybe a different way. So we're going to start and go next. Now the first couple questions, I think you're allowed a calculator. This is one of them. This practice test only has 10 questions, but so there's probably only one that doesn't use a calculator. So a painter rented a wallpaper steamer at 9 a.m. and returned it at 4 p.m. He paid a total of $28.84. What was the rental cost per hour? So a lot of times I'm looking at the answers here. The answers can kind of indicate whether I'm going to need to estimate or not. For this one, they're a little close together to estimate. This would be one of those easy ones that you could keep doing, in your first pass. So we have from 9 to 4, and how many hours is that? And then the operation would be divide. So I wish we had more people that would tune in. Let's ask Barbara what the answer is. Now, mind you, usually have a minute when it's a real testing situation. Unfortunately, that's why people kind of freak out when they see the time. And if Barbara doesn't answer, what I'll do is I'll go to the next one. This is one maybe you could round off. We have from 9 to 12 is 3 hours, right? 3 to 4 is 7 hours. He got paid 28. 7 into 28. So we have answers actually with this one. You can always click on the answers to get an explanation. And this is another test strategy to recommend, is that they do a lot of practice tests. So the option was C. In this one, there's not too many test strategies. It's just, adding. And so even when we figured out the hours 7 into 28, that's all we needed to figure out was the 4. So you want to try to find the fastest way to figure out, and the only way you'll figure out the fastest way is to do a lot of tests. Here we have, what is the value of 36y minus 8y squared when x is 3 and y equals 6? What's interesting here is the more practice tests we started looking at, we started noticing that 2 would always be similar to the other 2. So here you notice we have 2 negatives here. Here we have 2 positives, even if you had no clue what the answer was. If you could narrow the answer down to being either a negative or positive, you're giving yourself a 50-50 chance to get this right. And that's the whole point, reason why I kind of wanted to have this webinar, is that I have been noticing little things like this. So I tell my students, calm down, look at this, you can figure out if it's negative or positive, and 50% right. And if you go through the test that way, then there's a 50% chance you'll pass the test, which is pretty good. So I'm not going to actually answer the problem because I wanted to show you similarities in these problems. Here, without reading the question, if you look at the answers, we have two less than or equal to signs. And the other expressions have greater than or equal to. So if we figured out if something was less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, we get a 50% chance. So you can jump up to this problem here, and what it says is Annie is planning a business meeting for her company. She has a budget of $13.25. Right there, if you have a budget, you don't want to go over your budget, right? So without figuring out the expression, you can narrow it down to it being two of these. This one means it's greater than her budget with the sign here. This one means it's less than. Actually, I must be blind. There's three less than. So at least we've narrowed this elimination down. It can't be this one. If we expect 26 people to attend the meeting, the cost of the renting room is $270. Now, usually we don't worry about the amount of people that come into the room, so that $270 is constant. So we can narrow those three down from that to the two having $270. So this is how you can do some elimination with the answers without having to really get too much into the expression. So $26 was or 26, I'm sorry, was the people. If I read further, X was the amount that she could spend on lunch for one person. And so that would be the only one that's there that would be possible. I have my students share with me different strategies because sometimes I don't have all the quickest ways to do it. And they feel like they're really smart when they do that, which is good because they are smart. Here, looking at the answers, if you have a range, this huge range, I mean, this range is from 337 all the way to 622. That sometimes can indicate if you can estimate that and not, do a whole bunch of math work and waste time. That's a huge range. If you didn't have a clue at all, what they recommend and what I've seen is that you can get rid of the lowest and the highest. I'm not sure if it's that case or this case here. And usually the two that are closest together will be one of the answers. So in this case, the two that are closest together would be the 337 and the 359. So this is when you don't have a clue. Instead of freaking out, you would use that kind of strategy. In this case, and this is a good problem to show a little strategy, Dominic earns about $285 a week plus 8% commission rate on his sales. If Dominic sells $4,213 in merchandise in 1 week, how much will his total earnings be for the week? Well, that's a lot to sell, 4,000 some, if he's only getting paid $285. So even just thinking what 10% is of 4,213 and just moving the decimal, that's like 421 for 10%. You add that to his paycheck, you can kind of get an idea that it's going to be one of these big ones. So we have 421, we add about 300, it's got to be D. And I'm sure you're going to want to know if I had the right answer when I just did this, so we'll look. D. So that's one of those that you can do really fast, but you can't see it right away if it's the first time you're taking this test and you didn't have the strategy. So always looking at the range because the range will indicate whether you need to estimate. I'm going to skip this question because this one is one of those that really got me mad when I saw it the first time, and I don't have any strategies because I'm still mad. So we're going to skip the tree one. Okay, this is a good example to show how to do strategies with data and charts that I was talking about earlier. So here the graph shows the level of ibuprofen Y units in a patient's bloodstream X hours after it was taken. Lots of people are really rushed. They don't look at all the stuff and how it's measured. So looking at the title, ibuprofen level in patient's bloodstream, looking at the X and Y axis, so we're comparing it, ibuprofen level in units, and they look like they just go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're comparing down here time since ibuprofen was taken. A lot of times they'll have extra stuff here, plus 2 with it or something. So looking at this and reading the labels, we're comparing time to the amount taken, the units. Looking and seeing where the graph starts at 0 there, looking to see how it's gone up, and then of course it's gone down. The level has gone down. In this case, the question asked, the level ibuprofen in the patient's bloodstream increased from blank hours to blank hours. So they're looking for an increase that is a drop. And so we have, I don't know if it's going to let me click on these. Our choices are 0, 2/3, 2.5. So we're talking about, it's important to know what they're asking. So here we're entering some sort of hours. And here we're entering hours. So when we think about dropping, and we go up to the high point here, we're at 6, right? But the time at 6 would be close to going up this way, a little less than an hour. So our choices definitely would not be 8 hours, it would be 5 hours. So you see how we can eliminate these? They don't have anything close to 6 hours.
Terry, I am so sorry to interrupt you, but your audio is going in and out.
Oh, your audio is too. Okay. Let me see if I can.
It's better now.
Oh, it is? I gotta
Yes.
get closer, I guess. I need to turn out, maybe. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It didn't go very long like that.
Okay. All right, so cut me off if it starts again. So actually, I'm going to skip this question and go to the next one. We look here. Can you hear me?
It started going out again, but I think you're good again.
Oh, my. I wonder what's up. Okay. In this case, you notice the answers. A lot of times looking at the answers is going to help you, especially if you're needing more, or your time is going down, down, down. To the nearest tenth of a cubic inch, what is the volume of each drinking cup? In this case, we could probably estimate this just by looking at the answers. So I didn't want to go into some math lesson while I was doing this. I kind of wanted to show you the different strategies and how to do something when you don't have a clue. Here, if you notice, they all have 6 S's. They have a less than sign. They have a less than sign. They actually have an expression here. So seeing how the 2 are different from the other 2, the 2 have comparison signs and the other 2 have parentheses. And so that can help you when you go to read the question. Not so much the question. So this is actually done and I can review. But I wanted to go on to another test to show you how to work a little further. Okay, so that was that, free practice test. Okay, I don't know if you've heard of this site. It's called Union Test Prep, but I found out that they have something similar to what the GED has, so it's a good site to look at. So they have all kinds of tests here, the mathematical reasoning, reasoning through language arts, science, and social studies. This is based on the GED test, so we'll have 4 options compared to the 5 options that the HighSet has. So this one has about 25 questions. I tell my students the more practice tests you take, the better, even if you don't have a clue how to answer them. Eventually they'll start noticing that they become very similar. A pole vault, oh, let me go back to the beginning because it has this answered already.
Terry, before you continue, Barbara was just wondering if she could use the site with her students.
Yes, yes. This one? Yes. And can you see that? There's a couple more. There's some Regents ones. I'll send you a list of them. But this is a really good one because it's very close to what the GED is. And somebody actually was on this one and answered some of these. But that's not the point because I kind of wanted to take you through stuff so when you don't have a clue, you know what to do. So we talk about a pole vault sticking and it's leaning against a wall, touching the wall 16 feet above the ground. The bottom end of the stick is 12 feet from the wall. How many feet long is the stick? So here we're giving answers that range from 4 to 28. So when we don't know what to do, you want to kind of get rid of the outliers, like the 4 that's kind of standing out there in the middle of nowhere. I know it's marked 4, but we have 22. And these aren't in order. The GD has them in order of smallest to greatest, so it would go like 24, 20, 22, and then 28. So this is a setup question, actually, because it's given us part of it. If a pole vault stick is leaning against a wall, touching the wall 16 feet above the ground. To do this, you would really need to kind of draw and visualize this. Get a picture in your head. If you did get a picture in your head, and I'm doing this right along with you because I haven't done this question yet, you have a pole vault leaning against a wall, so what's going to happen is you're going to have a straight line and a diagonal line, and then you're going to write the different measurements. Once you do that, it makes it clearer what to do. So a pole vault leaning against the wall, touching the wall 16 feet above the ground. Your wall is straight, the other's diagonal. The 16 would be one of the sides. The end of the stick is 12 feet from the wall. By drawing that, you'd realize that you have a Pythagorean theorem thing here, because you're trying to figure out the distance or the length of that stick. You'll find out you'll have a right triangle. And then you'll use the legs and use the a squared plus b squared plus c squared. So you would do this 16 squared plus 12 squared equals whatever the stick would be squared. Any kind of, and that reminds me, any kind of thing that deals with a right triangle, when you're asked about Pythagorean theorem, if we have a triangle, it usually has some sort of ratio or balance between the sides. So it's kind of like a 4, 5, 6 thing. The hypotenuse, or in this case it would be the stick, is never going to be longer than the two sides that they mentioned. So if we had to guess this one, it could never be shorter. It couldn't be a 4. It couldn't be anything too much bigger. This one actually has explanations. The answer is 20. So when you think of 12 and 16, 12 is 4 away from 16. What's 4 away from 16? 20. So it's always kind of has a proportion. The more practice tests they do, the better off they're going to become. Let's go to the next. In fact, let's just go pick a different test that doesn't have all this. I'm going to go back here. My mouse isn't working today. And we're going to pick a different test. Sometimes I let my students use my computer to do their practice tests. And I have to mention this is a very good start, or a very good site for this. Oh, it's not letting me pick any other ones, I guess. I'll try to check out. It seems to be having a problem picking out my practice test here. This is a free site you can go on. Go to the practice test again. Okay, so can't do that. Let's go. Maybe it only limits us to 1. So let's go to the next question. Okay, here. Lucy is building a fence for her pig pen so that the pigs can't escape. The area of the rectangular pig pen is 96 square feet. The length of the pig pen measures 12 feet. What is the width in feet? So we have a choice from 6 to 12. Visualizing this would be really good. And having to know that this is area of, and this is a flat thing. I put these wrong answers in on purpose so we could get explanations. So the correct answer is 8. When you think of area, it's length times width. Sometimes we don't get the length and width, we get the area too, so it takes a little algebra to move things around. Okay, here we have shipping containers. When you think of a shipping container, you think it's three-dimensional. It's a big old box, and when you think about storages, they're a big old box, so they're three-dimensional. It's gone from flat to three. So when you don't know what to do, if you tell your students, okay, if you picture what it is, then you can picture out what the formula is. We wouldn't be looking for a formula necessarily that is something flat. So it would be something, the answer would have to be in some sort of cube. So a shipping container is 80 foot long and 2.5 feet wide. The amount of space inside. The amount of space is one of those things that make you realize you need a volume formula too. Is approximately 2,000. How many feet high is the box? Once you figure out that that's a volume formula, then we might not necessarily get it in the right places, but we can figure where to put what. So 80 feet. Does Barbara have a guess? Or would she like to guess?
There's nothing in the chat at the moment.
Okay. And yeah, if you were spending 2 or 3 minutes on this, you would want to come back to it. You saw how some were easy to do and others were harder. Just noticing the cubic feet, if that really should have been in the answer here. So Barbara, volume is length times width times height. So we have the 2,000. And we're going to try to estimate this a little bit and see if it works. Equals, we know it's 8 foot long and it's 2.5 feet wide. How high is the feet? So we have 280 or so. Maybe we want to make it, instead of 2.5, 3. So if we multiply 3 times 280, we'd have 24. Let's see, I'm doing my math here. About 840 already. And we're going to divide that into the 2,000. So I'm just going to round that 840 off to 800 and see if I get close enough. So 800 into 2,000 would be, let's see, about, well, 8 into 20. You get maybe about 300, or not 300, 20 or 25 would be the closest ones that you could come to here. So I'm rushing through this really quick, so my guess would be 25. Let's see if it worked. 10. I was way off. So that one didn't work. I'd have to let it go and go to the next one. Okay, we're having a really hard day today. Okay, here, looking at answers. They're kind of far apart too. We have some that are 125. We have some that are 31. So the whole thing is, if you don't know what to do, what you might want to do is cut out the lowest, the highest, and go for something in between, but there's not anything in between here. I think we could probably estimate this. I'm waiting to get to some of the graphics. Here we have a triangle that has 2 equal sides and one angle that is 120 degrees. This is one of those typical ones where you know it adds up to a certain amount. What are the other 2 angles? Knowing anything about the interior angles of a triangle equal 180, you could kind of figure this one out. But I'm going to go back to this test strategy PowerPoint. Well, actually, I want to go back onto the Hangout, our Hangout. And I'm going to see if she has any questions or any problems she'd like to bring up. And I'm going to stop sharing. Or I guess I could still share. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to get back to that screen. I don't know what this is I have on. And here's my stop sharing. So I wanted to ask Barbara if she had any questions about any other test strategies. I really didn't want to make this into a math lesson necessarily. The one big thing I didn't talk about is, well, there's lots of test strategies, but there's ways of looking at the questions and figuring out, and ways of looking at the answers to figure out things when you don't know what to do. So if I stop sharing this, how do I do that? Let's see. There we go. Have we switched over?
If you're ready for me to stop the broadcast,
Yeah,
I can stop the broadcast.
I actually am, because I didn't have anything else.
Okay, I will stop the broadcast.